Hi, this is Pam. I own and edit the magazine called ROC Metaphysical. That's ROC Metaphysical, all one word. ROC because I live in Rochester, New York, and that's the call letters for the airport. And I was trying to be simple. So I thought, oh, that works for me. So ROC Metaphysical is only online, and I have new articles that come out the first of each month. So the next time, new things, July 1st, and I have writers and people from all over the world that share their stories or their knowledge. And what I find so interesting is that all the writers provide these articles for free because they feel so strongly about the information or the knowledge that they want to share it out there. So to me, that means volumes, to help enlighten people. And my tagline is enlighten and inform to kind of get people up and running and onto, metaphysical and spiritual topics so we can all progress further on our journey while we're on the planet. So today I'm talking to Tom T. Moore, who we know each other, but he's been a very popular guy and has a blog, which I've been reading for years. Has written what, at least 6 books and counting?
Hey,
8, okay. And so we're going to be talking about his most current book, which is about Gaia, which is the official name of our lovely blue planet. And so, Tom, you want to step back and talk about yourself, who you are and the things that you do, and then how do you tune in to get this information?
sure. Be happy to. And hello, everybody out there. And before I forget, Pam, in case you want to run an excerpt from the book in your uh, in your upcoming magazine, feel free to.
Well, thank you.
So, um, anyway, I've been doing this kind of a long time. Um, I got interested in what's called the gentle way in the late 90s. And then I discovered in 2005 that I could communicate telepathically. Excuse me. First, I communicated with a shaman in the 1600s by the name of Reveals the Mysteries. And he told me I was a shaman living in the same time period. My name was Stillwater, and I had uh, decided to incarnate into this time period in order to reintroduce people to the gentle way. He gave me the name of my first book, the very first time I ever spoke to him. And then after that, he said, "You're going to write books." And I said, "No, no, no. I'm a business guy because my wife and I own a small international film distribution company." And he said, "No, books." That almost that loud. And so I said, "Well, okay." And so I wrote um, the first book in 90 or 100 days. And uh, but when I created a website, I called it the Gentle Way Book, singular.com, because I didn't think I'd ever be able to write another book. So that's why the website is not plural.
Right. And so, talk about the most benevolent way, because I think that's such a big part of you and your blog.
Sure. The uh, the Gentle Way, I learned you can request benevolent outcomes for yourself, and those are called MBOs, most benevolent outcomes. You start with the real simple things, as I did, mundane things like uh, a parking space in front of a busy restaurant or a drive to work or uh, simple things like that, where you can get immediate feedback. And then as you see the success of these, then you'll automatically start requesting for more and more important things to the point where you can request things like Um, I request a most benevolent outcome for the perfect job for me, or the perfect home for me, or the perfect mate for me. But these are things that take longer, and you have to be patient. And one time I had a couple of ladies that emailed and they said, "Tom, I've been doing this for a whole month, and I still don't have a mate." So you really have to be patient because there are things that have to happen. In that case, maybe they're in another relationship. Maybe you need an interim relationship to prepare you. Like my wife said, kissing a lot of frogs to find the right one. And so that's how MBOs work. Now, for requesting benevolent prayers for other people, I made it really simple. In the first book, it was called the Living Prayer, but in the General Way 2, I came up with an easy saying for everyone to be able to immediately remember so you wouldn't have to think, especially if there were time was of the essence. And that would be, I ask any all beings to blank, blank, blank. Um, Thank you. So, as an example, last week I had a real problem with my right knee. Um, I snow skied for 40 years, so my knees are not very good, and I've been having injections about every 6 months. But I'd forgotten to because I was doing so well. Uh, the last time I'd had it was last in mid-August. I should have had it in mid-February, but I kept going, and then suddenly, bam! Suddenly I was on a walker around the house and all. And so I asked everybody on my Facebook pages. I have two, one personal and one uh, as Tom T. Moore author, to say a benevolent prayer for healing energy to go to my right knee and for my visit to the doctor, which was today, to have treatments that would restore my knee back to full health, uh, even better than we can hope for or expect. Sure enough, the next day, my knee had absolutely no pain, and today they rescheduled or scheduled um, knee injections for me when the injections arrive in 2 or 3 days. So I'll be I'll be back to walking with the dogs and all that good stuff.
Well, I know I use them for, and like you said, simple things, which, worked. And I think I probably sent you a note. I went to Ireland and because it's typically rainy in May, and I says, gosh darn it, I want to go and see the beauty of it and not, be stuck in the rain, and it may not work out as well as I had hoped. So I asked a couple times, for insurance. And don't you
which is
know,
which you're not penalized for.
right?
You can request a MBO as many times as you want, and my guardian angel Theo says you're not penalized.
Oh, well, that's good to know because I thought maybe they were tired of hearing from me. So, so guess what? It was gorgeous and sunny, and it was the nicest weather that they had had. In fact, it was warmer than they had expected for May. So
Wow.
I was like thrilled because, a lot of the things we did was walking outside, and I wanted to enjoy walking outside. And, I'm in upstate New York or Western New York, and, our springs are usually rainy and cold and miserable. So I'm very used to that. And
Yeah.
it was a vacation. And so I'm very happy that they heard me and made sure that the weather was great. So,
And you,
you know,
you can ask that. As an example, last night we had some really severe thunderstorms that went through the area. And so I said, and we all did in the family, I requested most benevolent outcome for the protection of our house, our daughter's house, and all the houses around us. And we expect lots of gentle rain. So we got lots of rain, 5.64 inches last night.
Wow.
And but they were predicting 80-mile-an-hour winds. We didn't seem to have that much around us. And so we got lots of rain, but not not damaging winds.
Right. Right. So we've talked about MBO and that your ability to tune in. So that's meditation where you kind of open your mind and information comes through.
Yes.
If people,
It's
it's new to them that I work on this because I have monkey mind. So, quieting your mind and trying to listen so that maybe there's messages, for me personally from higher realms or, my
right.
spirit team.
And you can just talk. Now, in my case, because I put out a free newsletter each week, people from all over the world send me questions to ask in my meditative sessions, and I do those typically on Saturday morning, somewhere around 2:15, 2:30, 2:45 for 2.5 hours. And this gives you an idea. It's kind of
Uh,
hard. For some
it's,
reason, it blurs.
yeah, kind of blurred out. I don't know if
I
that's
don't, but anyway, that's a whole page of questions that I ask. And, but, uh, pick a time where you're absolutely quiet and you're not thinking about anything, um, having a relationship to your normal life. And I recommend people, beginners, if you've never meditated, to go on Amazon and look up Dick Sutphen, Sutphen, Dick Sutphen, his spirit guides. It's a 74 or so minute uh, audio. It used to be uh, a CD too, but I think Hay House, who bought his catalog, um, doesn't do CDs anymore. And you can sit there and play that over and over again each day until you get comfortable, knowing, oh, will I wake up, or what's he going to say next, or whatever. But he takes you down safely, surrounds you with a bubble of white light, as I always surround myself, and then he's quiet for 5 or 10 minutes, lets you ask questions, and then he comes back on and brings you back up. Very simple. So for beginners, I think that's a very easy way to do it. And it's something you can play over and over again until you get comfortable and know that it's going to work, and you're going to wind up getting to ask questions of whoever you wish. Although I typically recommend asking to speak to your guardian angel, who's considered your best friend and is with you all the lives you have on earth.
good recommendation. So, because you do that, then it kind of ties into your current book. So, your current book is about Earth, or it, I don't know if it prefers the name Gaia or it just has accepted that name because someone came up with it and said, okay.
Yeah, someone came up with it. I've been told that, like in past lives, I've called Gaia uh, Mother Earth as an example. And but someone came up with that term years ago, and so it's stuck for the modern age. And so when I talk to Gaia, I call her Gaia just like everybody else.
So, and you can explain this, and we've talked before I turn the button on, is that everything has energy, and even a rock or a pencil, a chair, everything has molecules that are spinning and,
Mhm.
has some kind of energy. And so this was something that I had to kind of think about is that Mother Earth or Gaia actually has a living presence. So I'm going to let you take it away because you can probably explain this better than me.
Okay. let's go way, way, way back, okay, to the time when um, there is a being called the creator of creators. I call her Big Mama, and she births trillions of creators, every single one of them with um, a different interest, which is far beyond our understanding. And Creator has told me, because I've speak to Creator too, that um, Creator was in sort of like the middle of all these creators that Big Mama was creating, was birthing. And so our creator of this universe went for a long time going to other universes, getting ideas from them, seeing what they were doing, long, long, long time. And finally, the creator decided to create the universe that we're in. And this, I've been told over and over again that creator loves variety. Now, I understood it or interpreted it to be about Earth, but I really think it has to do with all of this universe because when Creator started creating galaxies, and I call this the small bang theory because Creator only created several hundred galaxies to start with, and they were all tightly packed together from the way I understood. Now, this was 25 billion years ago, and we think the universe is only 13.5 billion, but due to the James Webb Telescope, they're going to determine that our universe is actually 20 billion years old. They they still don't have the equipment, I'm told, to be able to see to the far, far edge or the beginning of our universe. And so this was about the time that Gaia showed up. And Gaia explained to Creator, and this whole conversation took place in a split second. And she explained that she wanted to become a quantum master. And so he told her, okay, if you do, then what you need to do is ensoul this asteroid that's about 2 miles wide, and for I want you to visit all of those galaxies and communicate with all of the souls that were drawn to ensoul the suns, the planets, the moons, everything, and all the different kinds of people that were drawn to have lives on those planets. And so this is what she did for the next few million years and and learning. And finally, she was assigned to Earth, and so she ensouls the Earth, just like there's a soul that ensouls our moon called Luna, and there's a soul that ensouls the sun, and he prefers to be called just Sun because he said, if any name that you chose for me you use, there would be a society on Earth that worships me that would say, "Oh, see, that's us." You know, you have to use our religion or whatever.
Right.
So that's how that came about, and eventually the uh, at what time exactly this took place, it was millions of years ago. Creator wanted to see if the four negative energies that exist could be worked with because none of these trillions of other creators had ever been able to work with anything but the 10 positive energies. And and uh, so and even our universe was created in the 10 positive energies. So Creator created a special space-time continuum that encircled um, our all of our planets and sun and everything. And Gaia was given the job because uh, Creator wanted to have create 12 Earths at 12 different frequencies to see how each frequency would react to to life. And and so she actually ensouls 12 different Earths.
It's a lot, you
That's a
know.
lot. Let me tell you. Took a lot of questions.
Right. So I'm familiar because I've been reading your blog for years that and other people have talked about like we have different timelines. I've heard 12 timelines. So there's 12 of you and there's 12 of me
Yes.
doing different things. Hopefully, uh we're on the plus side here and the
We're on timeline 6,
oh, okay.
middle frequency. So so we're influenced by the upper timelines. A lot of, in fact, almost all of the inventions and everything, they come from the upper timelines and they work their way down to our timeline. But we're also influenced in some ways by the lower timelines that have much harder lives. In on timelines 1 and 2, I've already transitioned. I already left the building, and due to a heart attack, something like that.
Right. And so I don't know if you talk about timelines in this specific book, but I think you probably talk
I
about it in one
do.
of you do. Okay. So it's one of the many things that you should get this book to really get to understand some of the terminology and the different basic foundations that makes Earth what Earth is and what's going on and how we're all interacting together. And I know there's a lot of questions about the four negative energies, and everybody keeps guessing,
Yeah.
but no one, from what I can tell, no one's been able to nail them down.
Someone got a little closer recently. They used AI.
Ah, okay.
They're cheated.
So, I mean, there's a purpose in that, I'm sure,
Yeah,
that, you know, we're
it's
learning.
for our scientists too. They don't even have a clue that there are four negative energies or 10 positive energies, so they're not trying to study them yet.
Right. Well, hopefully that time will come, but I'm
Yep,
sure creator or the powers that be that was set in place, for us to learn. And we're kind of like they talk about Earth is a place to learn. And this is
yep.
we're all learning and you
All
know,
of our souls volunteered for what's called the Earth experiment. Uh,
right.
and all of our souls came from other planets. We were the highest vibrational level on those planets. That was the only way we could be accepted for the Earth experiment. And after, on average, 600 to 800 lives on Earth, we will all go back to our planets and help them uh, start raising their vibrational levels for the people that were not able um, to they were didn't have a high enough vibrational level to take part in the Earth experiment.
Well, I feel better now when I have a bad thought about a person or that, I came from a place where I was working at a very high level because, as a human, every once in a while somebody bugs me and I might not have happy thoughts about that person, but then I do
Yep.
a most benevolent outcome a lot of times.
Yeah, and send white light to them.
Right.
If you're having problems with somebody in life, send them white light and love every single day. It's very hard if you're having a really tough situation. Um, I go back to a story where back in when my wife and I used to own a wholesale tour company. Um, a competitor of ours asked if we wanted to share a charter jet out to Las Vegas, and put 50 people each on the plane. And so we did that until he felt comfortable and he decided, well, I don't need you anymore. I'm just going to take the whole plane for myself. And that cost us quite a bit of money at the time. And and I said, well, some guy's going to shoot, or somebody's going to shoot that guy someday. Lo and behold, he's driving from Acapulco to Mexico City. He's waylaid by bandits and they almost kill him. He was
Wow.
able to escape. But after that, I said, I don't want to be responsible for putting that out there. So I sent him white light every day. I couldn't send him love because it was hard, but I was told as long as I sent him white light, I was okay. Lo and behold, uh, he was assassinated in his own house, and they could never prove it, but the thoughts were that his wife had him killed. But
Wow.
at least I didn't feel like it was my fault.
You were uninvolved, so that's good.
Uninvolved.
So let's go back to the book, which is I didn't write down the title of the book. So your new book, the title is,
Is Conversations with Gaia, the Soul of the Earth,
okay.
volumes one and volumes two. The reason being, when my publisher formatted the book, it was over 650 pages. And so we mutually agreed to come out with a two-volume set to make it easier for people. Each one, if you buy the printed version, I think it's $18.99 each. If you buy the Kindle version, it's 1998 total.
Oh, so yeah, I was lucky, you sent me an electronic copy so I could peek through it and see what was on there. So I
Yep.
know,
And I might add, if you wish to order it from your local bookstore, Ingram's, the book wholesaler, you can order it through them too.
okay. So I know you really wanted to talk about earth changes. That was one of your topics that you wanted to talk about, the things that are going to be happening or have happened. And
Will happen in 2026.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty noticeable now. I mean, you turn on the TV and you're seeing floods and hurricanes and tornadoes. I mean,
Kind of rough this year, isn't it?
it seems like it's more than it has ever been. So that
Yep.
makes me kind of wonder,
Yeah.
is Earth just a little mad or unhappy or doing something to say, I've had enough, people.
Now, Gaia's ramping up for next year. And she says, and this just came to me in this last Saturday's briefing, I'll call it, or questions. And uh, she said that as we get, because I've had a problem, with some people just not wanting to talk about this possibility at all. And I can understand why, because there's going to be these huge earth changes, and I don't want to see them happen. I prefer that I misreceived, but but she says that as we get closer to the end of the year, we're going to see more ramping up. She said this year we'll only have earthquakes that are going to be, there'll be smaller earthquakes, uh, with the maximum being like a 5.1, 5.3 on the West Coast. But starting in 2026, the first 3 months, um, she's going to start really ramping up with hundreds of earthquakes, with some of them being as high as 6.0 and 6.5 on the West Coast. And this is all the way from Tijuana all the way through the Aleutian Islands. And then in somewhere around late May to June, and this timing can be adjusted a little bit either way. Um, that's when the huge quakes start, and those will be 7 points, 7.5, eights, even nines. And there won't be just one, and that's it, one and done. There'll be one after another, up and down the West Coast. Um, and there will be tsunamis created that will go across the ocean and completely swamp Hawaii and even all the way down uh, to Australia may have as high as 30-foot tsunamis. So this is, uh, I'm told that there will be 200 million casualties. And I asked about this past Saturday, and I was told, I said that includes fatalities um, and injuries, and I was told that's correct. But the higher percentage would be in fatalities due to the crumbling buildings and the tsunamis. So that's that's what's coming. And I've given people in the book, I gave them 5 different options. The first one was to do absolutely nothing until the precursor quakes come in the early part of next year, and then they've got to decide, boy, I got to move, or they're going to get caught, and they're going to have to hike, literally hike out of California. Gaia is going to take the mountains down around Los Angeles, and and the highways and everything will be pretty much impassable. So how are the people going to get out? They'll have to walk if they can in the middle of one earthquake after another. So that there are 5 things that I suggested uh, options. Second one would be at the very, very least, um, uh, you know, for the people on the West Coast, they're supposed to have earthquake supplies already. If you don't, you need to buy them. At least you can have food as you're walking. Um, and the uh, uh, put buy a trailer hitch and put it on your car. And so if things start getting a little rough, you can go to the U-Haul store. Instead of standing in a long line, you can immediately hook up uh, to a U-Haul trailer, pull it over to your place, and head out on the road before things get too rough. If if nothing else, if it starts getting rough, you can abandon the U-Haul and continue on in the car if you've got decent mode of transportation. So there are other things you can do.
Right. Well, and like you said, you know, I know that from reading your blog, you're usually about 80% correct.
Yeah, I estimate somewhere 80 to 90%.
Right.
I'm told that no one that does this work is accurate. And uh, I, I just pointed out the other day to in one of my newsletters that um, Gaia told me in April, I think it was in the April 25th or somewhere around that newsletter, that Ukraine was planning a surprise attack on Russia, and of course that just happened recently. So Gaia's pretty good on what she tells me, and she's really doubling down on this 2026 because I keep asking, well, are you sure? you know, I'm hoping I misreceived this, but she said she had told me originally, because I've been asking about this for years. Every January and June, I would ask her, what's the probability of quakes and also Yellowstone erupting? And she would give me the percentages, and they were stuck for years. But she said, if you see any time that suddenly there's a large migration out of California and a large migration in, that tells you that your souls have given me permission to do these earth changes. And so sure enough, she says that fully 75% of the people whose homes were burned, businesses destroyed, and all in Los Angeles, 75% of them are going to be forced to move out of California. And she said that is the migration out.
Okay. Well, I mean, because I'm East Coast, and even as a kid, I had family in California, and it was always a topic of discussion that with fault lines,
Yep.
we would always discuss, jokingly, but I mean, this is serious now, that, the fault lines, that there was always this chance of devastation for California.
Yes. But just one here,
Right.
one there, not months of these continuous huge quakes and tsunamis and so that's and it's going to because of the loss of land all along the west coast of North America, all the oceans of the world are going to rise 3 feet. And so, uh, what's it going to do to the St. Lawrence uh, Causeway or Lake Ontario or you know is there going to be is it is the water coming and will affect Montreal or Ottawa or
Toronto,
Rochester where you are?
Buffalo, and then there's Erie, Lake Erie.
Yeah.
We're very close to Lake Erie. So, the, I just want to say that you're doing this as a way to help people, and you hope you're wrong.
Yeah.
Really hope you're wrong, but I mean, it's being prepared. I mean, it's just something that, it's in your heart that you want people to know.
And if I'm wrong, I'll be thrilled. But I'm afraid, if you read the chapter in the book on these 2026 changes, hmm, they're really specific.
Right.
Mm.
So, I mean, it would behoove people to get the book and sign up for your blog because, you do keep talking about things that are happening and the impact. The one thing I've seen it on my news feed where they're talking about a volcano off of Washington State or Oregon, somewhere up
Mhm.
there, and that in the news they're saying that there seems to be a little bit of activity,
Yeah.
that
I
it,
think I was told that it's going to erupt, but it's not it's not going to cause the big one.
yeah,
Big. Um, there's a guy on YouTube called the Earth Master, and he does a daily update on earthquakes around the world. And he's noticed just recently that in the Cascadia subduction zone, I think it's called, there have been over 11,000, probably more now, uh, tremors. And he said a lot of times that's a signal for something larger coming. He's been so, you know, don't take my word for it. Follow the Earth Master if you wish.
right.
He
Well, I
probably
think,
he should he probably should give me a commission. But I found he's just and he lives in Sacramento.
oh,
He's
right
not
in
a
the
good
middle of it.
place. Yeah, at least he has family in Texas, so maybe he can move.
Yeah. So, this is take it for what it's worth. And the other part of that was if that occurs and then the volcanoes erupt, then there's this whole thing about air quality and that, and usually from the weather map, things come across, from
Mhm.
California, usually this way. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
could have far-reaching impact across the
and
West.
and Yellowstone is a super volcano, and the reason it's going to erupt when these large earthquakes on the West Coast happen, it's going to open up a chasm or something into the magma, and it's going to cause Yellowstone to be a super volcano, and it's going to erupt for months and months and months. And this ash cloud is going to go across the upper uh, top of the United States and the lower part of Canada, all the way to Chicago. It's and and they will not be able to see the sun, and it will cause a mini ice age. Because of that, the snow won't be able to melt, and it'll be unlivable for the people in those upper states.
Yeah, it's
Isn't that a real thrill?
kind of scary. But, I'd rather be forewarned and, be a Girl Scout and be prepared and, keep an eye out for supporting evidence. I mean, you could just say you're full of baloney,
Exactly.
but, and, hopefully nothing will happen, but to be
And
forewarned is forearmed, I guess, is the,
yes, and I mentioned this on another program back 2 or 3 months ago, and the people were furious at the uh, at the host for even bringing this up, and uh, so she hasn't been able to have me on anymore because of that, because many of the people watching her live on the West Coast,
yeah.
and it's bringing up something that's like a deep dread or something.
Well,
And
right. I'm kind of worried. I mean, I read what you have and I think about it and, nobody wants it. And who knows, we could get lucky and it won't occur, but, you just have to listen. And that's what I tell people. The magazine is all about listening and educating yourself and questioning and do your research to make sure that this resonates. I mean, you can think I'm full of baloney, you're full of baloney, and
yeah,
I'm not, we're not here to force anything on anyone. This is just information and hopefully it's going to be have a positive effect. I mean,
yep.
that's kind of the point of my magazine is to, uplift and inform and educate and that kind of thing. And if they
Give,
go,
give
this
you
is,
options.
yeah,
It's up to you. Your sole contract may be to do nothing. Um, and that guy explained that to me. She said uh, there are guardian angels that are telling their charges to absolutely ignore what I'm saying because their sole contract is to experience either the volcano eruption or these earthquakes because they have never that's never happened to them. They never had a life during the Atlantean times when they destroyed themselves, or during the Lemurian times when the whole continent was destroyed. So, um, so they need to experience this as one of the experiences they must have during their 600 to 800 lives on Earth.
right, while we're on this planet to learn and to have every experience that you could possibly have.
Exactly. Every
So, we're supposed to have, of course, we only want to have fun and
Yes,
wonderful things happen.
and
But,
only be the good guys, never the bad guys.
right, yeah. So, do you mind if we switch gears now and kind of uplift people a little bit now
Yay!
after we've kind of, talked about things that are not that pleasant. So your book goes into a lot of different things. And my interest, like I just came back from Ireland and we talked about this, is that you also communicate with fairies and in particular the king of the fairies
And the Queen.
and the queen. I was in Ireland and the Irish people 100% believe and you don't, say anything bad and say it's blarney or no, it's real to them and they believe it. So you talk to the king and the queen and they talk about their jobs of managing plants and flowers and trees and that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, King Oberon and Queen Titania are after me to do a book on fairies. The problem is I'm just not getting very many questions about fairies. I'm I probably don't have any more than 25 or 30% of a book yet. So I encourage people, if you have questions about fairies, please send them to me. Um, I get such interesting things like I've talked to King and Queen about leprechauns, and they're they don't like leprechauns too well, and uh, they but they explained to me that the soul of the leprechauns only creates male leprechauns. There are no female leprechauns. And I thought that was really interesting that the soul just only wants males. And so when one of the leprechauns dies, the soul just creates another male leprechaun. So there are lots of things we can learn and about how the fairies work underground and to assist all the plants and trees and all to grow and they've been here for millions of years before we got here and and they tell me that they'll be here millions of years after we leave, all of us leave in 7,000 years after the end of the Earth experiment.
Yeah, and so they watch over the plants uh, to seasonally, help them, and they like to hang out, I guess. I mean, I'm probably not using the right vernacular here, but they enjoy gardens and they enjoy being in forests. And I mean, is there specific jobs, that they do? Like, is there a certain group assigned to flowers and a certain group
Sure,
assigned to
they're
trees?
the little people, those little people. They're keep in mind they're at a different focus than we are. That allows them to be able to go underground to work with the root system and everything. And those little fairies, there might be uh, three or four that handle a fairly good large plot of uh, of land, and uh, they're busy bee workers. And I now have a fairy house out sitting in the middle of my flower bed just for them. And you don't need to worry whether it has a door, whether the door opens or not, because keep in mind they can go through walls, you know, and they love, if you have a little lifesaver, if you want to leave it for them, they like that.
Yeah, I heard that they like shiny things,
Shiny things too. Yes.
right? Yeah, so there was one of the things I wanted to ask about them. I mean, the king and the queen have been around for a long time. Um,
Yes.
they
And
have,
they're from the
and they
very
have
same soul. So they're like, you know,
like a
uh,
twin flame kind of thing.
a soul, what do you call them? There's a word there, but anyway, they're they're the same soul, but a male and female aspect of the soul.
And they have their own families. Like they have lives like we do. Don't they have partners and they have families?
I haven't gotten that far, but it doesn't sound like um, the king and queen have a family per se. Um, I again, that I guess that's something that could be asked, but it doesn't, it hasn't come up. There's just so many different kinds of of fairy people, fairy folk, and leprechauns is just one of you know tons, and so that's why I could use more questions. I'll be happy to ask.
And then what about Atlantis and Lemuria? I know didn't you have one specific book that was just about,
I did. Atlantis and Lemuria, the lost continents revealed. I don't know if it will show up.
yep, that does. Yeah, it
Why
kind of goes in and out.
why is that?
I don't know. Your camera maybe it adjusts and it doesn't like it when it's yeah, I'm not quite
Anyway,
sure.
there's that. And but I also have some information in the Gaia book about Atlantis and Lemuria. Um, she, she covered so many subjects that when when we were compiling this, um, I just said leave that portion in, because it's like only a chapter. And but but the book itself is quite deep, explains timelines in detail and goes all the way back to the start of the Earth experiment and how the ETs uh, had to experiment with different kinds of bodies of to find the right body finally with the Homo sapien. So
Right?
a lot of good stuff in there.
Right. And I know you talk about dolphins and their value to be in the ocean and
Hmm.
if they're a high vibrational being and they were here from, well, people want to believe this, that we all came from another planet and so did cats and dogs, and they're probably going to think I'm crazy now. But dolphins and whales were here intentionally to be in the oceans. And
Yes.
if I remember right, the vibration that they have is in the water. And
And they're keepers of the history too.
right,
We have a lot of learning that we still have to do to be able to communicate with all these
right.
very ancient people.
So is there any other part of the book that you wanted to highlight before we there's so much, I know.
Yeah, as I mentioned a little earlier, uh, I just opened the book to spirituality and I started reading that. And I said, good night. There's a lot of questions in this one chapter. I mean, you may have to read it twice in order to get everything out of it because it's really loaded with questions that were. Keep in mind, all the questions I asked, 99% of them come from people that read my free weekly newsletter
Right,
from all over the world. I get questions from China and Australia and Europe and Estonia and um, you, you know you name it, South America and the Caribbean. A lot of people ask ask me questions and I ask Gaia and try and get the best answers that I can for them.
all right. So do you want to give out like your websites and
Sure. Okay. My website is www.thegentlewaybook, singular.com. And on there, on the first page, and even if you go to the articles and news section where I have archived my 900 plus newsletters, that you can read. And there's a Google box at the top where you can Google in a name or a phrase or something like that to do searches. And there's also a place to sign up for the newsletter on that page. So you got two different places you can sign up. It's free. It's my gift to the world. Um, and and then you can send me in questions after you've read this book. you probably, when you read this book, you're probably going to have follow-up questions, and that's fine. I'll I'll do my best to ask them and send them to you and put them in the newsletter. I only use first names, or you can, in some cases, people don't even want their real names to be used. They ask me for a pseudonym, so it's up to you. But if your name is John, you don't kind of need to worry. Oh, that's John from down the hall. Well,
Yeah,
no,
I've been getting the blog for years, so yeah, it's very interesting. You never know from week to week what the topics are going to be,
that's true.
and it's very informative. A lot of it's uplifting, so you're not always gloom and doom, and you
Yep,
give stories about the MBOs and people had positive results, and it's nice to see, when people are in a pickle and they need help and things
right.
work out.
And
So.
I try to have, four or so MBO and BP stories each week because it gives people lots of ideas on how they can use these in their lives too.
Right. And people, I love it when some create their own and then they share it
Yeah,
and they come up with some really good ones. So,
sure.
and I know when I'm in a hurry, I just Google Tom T. Moore and it comes right up so I can get to your blog page. And you said 8 books now. So Amazon is your best friend, I would think, where you
Yeah,
can,
Amazon does the majority of sales, and that holds true for almost any book.
right.
They're the big guy, and but we Ingram does handle these. So if you want to give your local bookstore a little business, you can order through them too.
Right. And I know you did a book on pets, which
Hmm?
talks about pets.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very popular.
Uh, where is that? Let's see if I can get this into focus.
Yep. Yep, we got it. Gentle Way with Pets.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of goes in and out, but
Yeah. Uh, I'm trying not to move it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there we
There you
got
go.
it. Yep. So lots of good books, lots of great information. So I think anything else you want to say before we
No,
sign off?
everybody give the gentle way a try. Try it, experiment with it. That's what I did when I started. Um, and and it worked perfectly. And I'd never been able to say that about any modality I'd ever used, including the law of attraction, which to me just didn't work very well. So the gentle way works perfectly with your soul contract.
And especially if things do progress as you say, you might want to learn how to do them when things are not very good out on the West Coast, and
That's true.
you're going to need as much help from your spirit team as possible to make sure everybody's safe and okay. So thank you. I really appreciate the time and the information. And there's so much you've done that we could be on here for hours, but time to tie it up. So I'm going to say thank you, and we'll see you on your blog. And I know you do speak on other shows where it may be live. Look at his newsletter or his blog to see where you may be speaking live. And sometimes you actually do like live fairs where it's a wellness fair or something like that.
Yes.
Sometimes you attend
Yeah.
those.
Open for speaking, just contact me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's it. I appreciate it, Tom, and stay healthy. And I hope your family is all well, and keep doing the good work. And thank you.
Thank you.